Hello, everyone. I'm Malf, and I'd like to welcome you to my Garden Vlog 2024 edition. My intention with this series is to casually share my gardening experience from the very start with indoor seed sowing in the early spring, all the way through late autumn with produce harvest and preservation. Before I continue with the rest of this episode, I want to make a very clear statement that will apply to all future episodes. I am by no means an expert in anything garden related. I'm doing this purely to show how I do things, what I'm working on, what I'm struggling with, and the mistakes I'm attempting to learn from. Almost everything I'll talk about and show is the result of trial and error over the past few years. And furthermore, and possibly more importantly, that's not to say I've figured things out. Gardening relies heavily on patience and a willingness to learn and adapt. The things you'll see over the next half year, if you choose to follow along, will almost certainly be riddled with inefficiencies, but hopefully improved upon further this time next year and the year after that. It's very important to me that people know I'm sharing an experience and not a lesson. So when I explain why I do something a certain way, it shouldn't automatically be taken as the optimal or even correct way. I know this all sounds a bit cynical in nature, but I've watched enough content where individuals position themselves in a more authoritative light when they really shouldn't. Of course, I do hope that I'll be able to share some bits of knowledge that I have gained over the years, and perhaps provide some inspiration that gets others into gardening. With that said, let's first get caught up on how the garden has progressed in the first 2 years. As you can see from the few photos here, the goal in 2022, when I first moved in, was to build 4 raised beds, each 4 feet wide by 8 feet long and nearly a foot tall. Each bed was filled with approximately 1 cubic yard of triple mix. In addition, I set up 96 fabric grow bags using the same triple mix, but with an added schedule of liquid fertilizers to ensure that the many variety of peppers in them received adequate nutrition. Once 2023 rolled around, having done much research, planning, and consulting with my brother, who is an actual expert on what local and native plants would be suitable for the yard, we began planting several shrubs and trees that will eventually grow large and create a natural boundary along the perimeter of the property. These plants are positioned in a way to support the local wildlife and pollinators with shelter and food, while also giving us some aesthetically pleasing privacy from neighbors. At the same time of establishing the perimeter plants, we began building 4 more identical raised beds with the same non-pressure treated wood, filling with the same triple mix, which is a mixture of topsoil, compost, and peat for those curious, and supplementing with a couple bags of sea compost for each bed to help provide the nutrients that the triple mix lacks. We then applied a nice layer of wood mulch to some of the beds to help with weed suppression and reduction in water evaporation, meaning we needn't water so frequently and use less water when we do. Meanwhile, the grow bag setup remained largely the same, with a few tweaks to the variety of peppers grown in them. Through the first 2 years, both the raised beds and the grow bags performed wonderfully with a good bit of care and maintenance applied. The biggest issues faced have been the various pests munching on plant leaves and produce, and the squirrels digging up the direct sow seeds to nibble on. That said, the harvest each year has still been substantial to the point where we can't even give away excess yields fast enough. As we gear up for the 2024 growing season, we look back on all the things we grew in the years prior, how each variety produced along with how high or low maintenance it was, and the overall quality of the produce once harvested. We like to look at the line of best fit of all these factors to ensure that we're not growing one plant type or variety when another could be better suited to our criteria. As we approach mid-March, we're preparing for indoor seed sowing, which means taking inventory of all the seeds we have and what we'd like to start growing so that it's ready to move outside once the risk of frost is gone. Seed sowing will be a video all on its own, but the plan currently is to grow some 80 plus different types of peppers, roughly a dozen different types of tomato, and a whole slew of tomatillo, eggplant, squash, soybean, cabbage, cauliflower, radish, carrots, cucumber, melon, and many different herbs. As vegetables and fruit get going, we'll continue to work on the other areas of the property to tackle some of the new and ongoing projects. Things like replacing areas of lawn with grass alternatives such as clover and creeping thyme, replacing the shed where the wood is currently rotting away, building a lattice wall along the garage for flowering vines to climb, finishing the deck renovation, and implementing a drip irrigation system to automate watering of the raised beds to further reduce water usage. Of course, all of these projects and more will be covered in this series as we work on them in the coming weeks and months. The ultimate goal for the garden and the property as a whole is to become as self-sufficient and sustainable as possible. We're only scratching the surface thus far, but it's a thoroughly rewarding and enjoyable process, and we'd like to share as much of it as possible. Gardening and plant keeping is something I would strongly urge anyone and everyone to consider, whether you have a backyard, a balcony, or a windowsill. I like to think of the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. And it's true. If you have any questions, suggestions, ideas, or whatever the heck else, drop a line in the comments. If you enjoyed this very rough first video in the series, please leave a like. And if you're new to the channel and are eager to see future episodes, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, peace out.